By 1939, Hitler had overturned many of the terms imposed on Germany by the Treaty of Versailles. His next target was the Polish Corridor, a strip of former German land that had been given to Poland after the First World War. Hitler believed that Britain and France would not risk going to war to defend Poland. However, he was less certain about how Stalin and the Soviet Union would respond. This uncertainty led to one of the most surprising agreements of the 1930s, the Nazi-Soviet Pact. Stalin had been concerned about the threat from Germany ever since Hitler came to power in 1933. Hitler had openly expressed an interest in conquering Russian land. He had also denounced communism, while communists in Germany had been imprisoned and killed. Stalin, therefore, had good reason to believe that Hitler was a threat to the Soviet Union. In 1934, the Soviet Union joined the League of Nations. Stalin hoped that the League would provide protection against German aggression. However, events during the 1930s showed Stalin that the League was unable to stop aggressive countries. The League failed to prevent Mussolini's invasion of Abyssinia, while both Mussolini and Hitler intervened in the Spanish Civil War. Britain and France had also failed to prevent German rearmament. Some politicians in Britain even viewed communism as a greater threat than Hitler and welcomed a stronger Germany as a possible force against it. In 1935, Stalin signed a treaty with France. Under this agreement, France promised to help the Soviet Union if Germany invaded. However, Stalin doubted whether France would keep this promise. France had failed to stop Hitler from sending troops into the Rhineland, even though the Rhineland was located on the French border. Stalin's suspicions increased after the Munich Agreement in 1938. He had not been consulted about the agreement, despite the Soviet Union's concern about German expansion. Stalin concluded that Britain and France were either too weak to stop Hitler, or were prepared to allow Hitler to expand eastwards towards the Soviet Union. Despite his concerns, Stalin was still prepared to discuss an alliance with Britain and France. The three countries began negotiations in March 1939. However, British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain was reluctant to commit Britain to an alliance with the Soviet Union. Britain and France then promised to defend Poland if it was invaded. Chamberlain intended this guarantee as a warning to Hitler. Stalin, however, saw it as support for Poland, which he considered to be one of the Soviet Union's potential enemies. Negotiations continued throughout the spring and summer of 1939, but no agreement was reached. At the same time, Stalin received visits from Hitler's foreign minister, Ribbentrop. Germany was offering Stalin a very different agreement. In August 1939, Stalin made his decision. On the 24th of August, Germany and the Soviet Union announced that they had signed the Nazi-Soviet Pact. In the pact, the USSR and Germany agreed not to interfere against the other power in the event of a war. The agreement shocked the world. Hitler and Stalin appeared to be bitter enemies. Hitler was strongly opposed to communism, while Stalin led the world's largest communist state. Despite these differences, they agreed not to attack one another. However, the pact also contained a secret agreement. Germany and the Soviet Union privately agreed to invade and then divide Poland between themselves. There were several reasons why Stalin agreed to the Nazi-Soviet Pact. First, he did not believe that Britain and France would be strong or reliable allies against Hitler. Their failure to resist German expansion during the 1930s had convinced him that they could not be trusted to protect the Soviet Union. Second, Stalin wanted control over large areas of eastern Poland. He also wanted to take control of the Baltic states, which had once been part of the Russian Empire. Finally, Stalin did not believe that Hitler would keep his word permanently. He expected that Germany would eventually attack the Soviet Union. However, the pact gave Stalin time to strengthen the Soviet Union's military defences and prepare for a future war. Stalin later claimed that the pact had secured peace for the Soviet Union for 18 months, allowing it to make military preparations. For Hitler, the agreement removed a major obstacle to an invasion of Poland. Without the pact, Germany risked fighting Britain and France in the west and the Soviet Union in the east. By reaching an agreement with Stalin, Hitler reduced the danger of a war on two fronts. The pact, therefore, cleared the way for Germany to invade Poland. Hitler believed that Britain and France would not honour their promise to defend Poland. Once again, Hitler was prepared to take a gamble. On the 1st of September 1939, the German army invaded Poland from the west. On the 17th of September, Soviet forces invaded Poland from the east. Poland was quickly defeated and divided between Germany and the Soviet Union. Hitler may then have expected to turn his attention towards the Soviet Union. However, Britain and France responded differently from what he had predicted. They kept their promise to defend Poland and declared war on Germany. Hitler had begun a war, but it was not the war he had intended. The Nazi-Soviet Pact was an agreement between two countries that appeared to be natural enemies. Stalin signed it because he mistrusted Britain and France. He wanted territory in Eastern Europe and he needed time to strengthen Soviet defences. Hitler signed it because it allowed him to invade Poland without immediately facing Soviet opposition. The pact cleared the way for the invasion of Poland and contributed directly to the outbreak of the Second World War.